Hey guys, this is Coach Keita Bussey with 180 Firearms Training, joined today by Sam Callahan from Callahan Training Group. This is the 180 Firearms Training Podcast. Today we're going to talk about red dots a little bit and get into sort of the crossover between USPSA / shooting sports and, basically your day-to-day real life shooting scenarios. All right, Sam, go ahead and introduce yourself.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Sam Callahan, owner of Callahan Training Group. I manage a range called Double Eagle Outdoors up in the Poconos. I'm basically a shooting coach. That's the easiest way to put it. That's kind of how I introduce myself to people. I've coached a lot of things in my past. I'm currently still a CrossFit coach, and I look at myself the same way. And that's why me and Kita get along very well, because I know she calls herself a coach as well. I like this as a sport. I really like this as a something that you could take forward into your shooting life, we'll call it, and I'm sure we'll touch into that. And it's just fun to be able to coach people in the whole process and get people better and better, not just sit there and teach a class and then everybody leaves and I don't see them again.
All right, so to start off with, since this was our most recent thing, we'll get to the red dot thing, but you just assisted with my class and we had an interesting guest in that class. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. Yeah, we've had interesting guests before, that's for sure, but this was a cool one. So everybody growing up in the shooting community is kind of refers to the old Magpul videos and all the old shooting videos and the old instructors. And I don't say old in a bad way, I just mean the original guys. And
The
what do you
OG.
know it? Yeah, the OGs. Yeah. And what do you know? I was hosting Chris Costa up at our range at the time. And he decided, hey, why wouldn't I step into this 180 firearms training class? And he jumped into your advanced class, and it was cool to see. It really was. It was very interesting.
Yeah, by advanced class, you mean the Train Smart class. I wouldn't really say one is more advanced than the other. They're just totally different things.
Yes, 100%.
One is very movement focused
Yep.
with a little bit of vision. The other is very how to coach yourself focused with a lot more vision training.
Yes.
So
And
what were your takeaways from that?
It was interesting watching him process and see somebody who's been shooting for so long process all the new things and see one of his comments struck me. He was like, it's going to be cool to process what I just did and take it to my students and take it to my people. And that was very cool to hear as well, because that's kind of how I'm always kind of standing on the hilltop screaming that. I was like, of anything, just come learn to compete so that you could take it back to your people. And he did just that, and it was cool to see. And something you got to push him to, which was fun, is, hey, guess what? We got to fail. You have to miss. You have to screw up. We're not going to sit here and drill A zones all day long. And it's really an interesting thing to see really, really accomplished, obviously very good shooters pushed outside of their comfort zone and then realize, oh, this isn't so crazy. Oh, I could do this. I can manage this. I can change this. So it was very cool. It was a very interesting class as a obviously somebody who's been aware of somebody like Chris Costa my whole life. But it was also interesting as an instructor to we'll call myself a novice instructor in comparison to Chris. It was very cool to see somebody as accomplished as Chris kind of take a back seat to you and just, okay, cool, let me try that. Okay, cool, let me try that. And really be a good student in the class. He was an amazing student, really. It was cool.
Yeah, and he let me take his class as well, and I returned the favor. We help each other out. We're all students for life.
Yes. So
the thing about pushing him outside of his comfort zone is you're going to learn a lot more from a miss than you are from an alpha, especially if you're doing it in practice and making every bullet count. You want to push until the wheels fall off, then dial it back. But if you never push, you're never going to find the line of what you're able to do. You're never going to get better. So if you're really pushing speed, you figure out how fast you can go. And then eventually your eyes just catch up.
Exactly.
You keep shooting that fast in practice and dial in your hits at the end of practice. Eventually your eyes do catch up to that pace. You realize you're seeing a lot more than you thought you were seeing. You just weren't aware of it. You're seeing it. You just can't really compute it all right away.
And it's like, obviously we're going to talk about red dots today, but red dots being a newer thing, I don't care how long you've been shooting. If you've been shooting as long as Chris or any of us, it's still pretty new and we're still gathering data on it. So it's cool to be able to share the data we have in the shooting sport side with him and kind of make it click where you could use your mind, you could use a lot of the follow-up and calling shots and a lot of the mental programming that you teach in anything. It doesn't need to specifically be for sports shooting, but you could use mental programming in anything. I talk to a lot of my SWAT and police officers about that.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? These guys who are out training for real life scenarios, they don't want to miss because you're responsible for every single bullet that leaves your gun. So how do you tell those guys it's okay in practice to have misses when you're pushing to that next level?
So the way I relate it to all my people is you have to find 101% here where there is no danger, so that you know where your 100% is, so that you never cross over that path. If you're always shooting at whatever your perceived ceiling is, you'll blow through it at some point and you'll never have felt that in a real life scenario. And I don't want my guys in going to a domestic or going to some horrible incident, that be the first time they have to shoot 17 splits. I don't want that to be, God forbid, the time they have to track their dot through a bunch of transitions. I want to push them well beyond that and then relate hey, now that you've done something that is probably statistically never going to happen to you in real life, now we can talk about relevance to real life. It's very easy to push them in the sports sense and then show them why it would matter in the real life sense. It's very helpful. It is.
All right, well, let's switch over to red dot. You just said something interesting, tracking your dot. Everyone's going to hear that and say, no, don't track your dot, it's slow. Well, there is an exception. You want to talk about that?
Well, I mean, so I'll reiterate what I was saying. When I say tracking the dot, I mean being responsible for where your dot is. And
okay, I thought you meant something else.
No, that's kind of a magical little thing we've been talking about, and everybody has their words for, and everybody has their hot button teaching keywords for, but it's essentially what I mean is just being able to be responsible for where your dot is in space. And that is a very open-ended Mr. Miyagi statement, and I liked that open-endedness side of it.
Okay, so the thing I thought you were alluding to, I'll just talk about now because you brought it up, well, inadvertently. But let's say you're shooting a plate rack. Those targets are pretty close together. If you can pick up your next target within the window of the dot, it's actually much faster to keep your eye on the dot and pick up the next target through the window versus taking your eyes outside the window to find it and then bringing the dot back on. That is the only scenario where you want to
micro
actually
transitions. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Transitioning while following the dot.
Yep.
If you can see the next target through the same window.
And that's so funny too, because you're right. Somebody's going to hear that and scream to the heavens. And
yes.
It's like,
yeah.
You know what? Like there's a place and time for everything. And that's the funnier thing right now. Everybody goes so hard one camp or the other. And I'm like, yeah, guess what? There's going to be one place that you're wrong. And do you want to be wrong, or do you want to leave just that little open-mindedness to say, hey, there might be a time I might track that down. It might be that one time it might help me. It really might.
So the reason we typically don't want to track the dot between targets is because I do vision training, and the slowest eye movement you can have is called a smooth visual pursuit. That's where your eye doctor holds your pencil in front of your face and you have to track that pencil eraser back and forth, and they don't want to see your eyes jumping all over the place. So that is a very slow eye movement. But do you know what we use that eye movement for in shooting? No. What is something that's moving that we have to follow?
Oh,
that's
movers,
not the dot?
swingers.
Yeah, a moving target or a clay plays. So we have to use that very slow, smooth visual pursuit to match the pace of a moving target, but it is the slowest eye movement. So if you're using that and you're not tracking a moving target or picking up another target within the same window, if you're just transitioning from target to target and you're following that dot, you're using the slowest eye movement you can possibly be using.
Yep.
And the fastest eye movement we have is called a saccade. That's where your eyes jump from one focal point to the next very, very quickly and suppress information in between. Like if I told you, hey, pick out everyone in the crowd with a red shirt, you would automatically suppress everyone not wearing a red shirt. because during that saccade, you suppress visual input that's not needed and you pick up what you do need. So as that translates to targets, you're picking up your spot on each target. You're not seeing the edge of the target looking for brown. You saccade over that. If somebody left a piece of rebar sticking out of the ground, you're not going to stop your eyes on the rebar and then get to your target. You're going to go right over that, which is why so many times when people are following their dot, you see them shoot that rebar or shoot the cable that goes to a popper that activates a swinger. These teeny tiny little targets that would be impossible to hit. And they're hitting it because they look at it. So the saccade stops you from looking at it, and it's the fastest possible eye movement.
Yeah, it's funny you said something. It's the whole saccade thing is something I 100% borrow from you, and I've taught a lot of my students. And something people kind of mess up is something buried in the statement you said is jump to your spot on your target, not jump to your target. Jump to the spot on the target. And that's where some people get a little weird, where their eyes do jump to the target, and then they see the target, they shoot the target, and they're like, man, how did I shoot that no shoot exactly on the perf right there? And I'm like, well, that's what you saw, man. You actually, congratulations, you shot exactly what you saw. That's actually, I'm happy to see that. Pick a better spot next time if you don't want to shoot that. But as far as I'm concerned, you shot exactly what you looked at. Congratulations.
Yeah, so the contrast between the brown and the white really sucks your eye right to that line. And that's why all the white pasters are just on the edge of the no shoot.
Right there, because it's the first thing you see. And if you don't have that spot that you're saccading to, then that's your first issue right there, is you're not using the red dot to its potential. Is you're not really using the red dot to its maximum usage. It's snapping it to each one of those little spots, picking that spot on target, and really defining where I want to put the dot rather than steering the dot into it.
Yeah, so suppressing visual information, we use that to suppress no shoots or hardcover or the edge of the target or anything we don't want to be looking at. But there's something else we suppress. Do you know what that is?
Oh, I feel like I'm being tricked.
You actually, when you're shooting a red dot, you have to suppress the dot.
I was going to say the gun itself. The dot is just out in space. Yeah, I'm just not paying attention to what's in my hands. I'm looking downrange entirely.
And it sounds so weird. You think, oh, well, that's what I'm looking for is the dot. No, you're looking for your spot on the target. You should be target focused. Your spot on the target should be clear. The dot is just superimposing on what you're looking at, which is the target, not the dot. You're aware of the dot. And if you have an index, it's just going to be there.
So it's funny because I said it earlier. I'm like, it sounds so Mr. Miyagi. It sounds so wax on, wax off. But like, you don't look at the dot. You are aware of the dot. You don't see the dot. You know where the dot. I know. I
do sound like a crazy person.
No, it's right though. And I tell my students, it really is like, that's exactly what it is. Is you have to trust the process. You have to understand that's how it works visually. I could use a lot of fancy words like ocular convergence, and I could use this. It doesn't matter though. Just trust me. Stare down range. See the dot come in. And then normally what I explain to people is something you know how to do is we're looking at the computer. We're doing it right now. Look at a folder and bring your mouse to it. Did you see the mouse, or were you aware of the mouse? Did you see the icon? Or are you looking at the outline? Do you even know the color of the icon? You have no idea. You just knew exactly where it was just because you're aware of it. Where was I focused? The target. I was focused on that stupid little folder, and then the drop down, and then this, and my eyes are snapping to the next target. And I'm just bringing the dot to it. I'm just bringing the dot to it. I'm just bringing the dot to it. So people know how to do it, and they go, oh yeah, I am on a computer 8 hours a day. I do know how to see that. Oh, I do know how. Okay, that does make a lot of sense to me. And I'm like, yeah, you know how to do it. We get very confused when we pick up guns. I mean, we joke about this all the time. You could put a gun in a college athlete's hand, and all of a sudden they don't know how to run. So it's you put guns in people's hands, and they're like, they don't understand what they know how to do. But you know how to do this. You do. You really do. It's easy.
Yeah, so we're suppressing the dot. You're aware of the dot, but you're focusing on the target. So if you're really struggling with that, do you want to give us some tips that people can do as sort of training wheels to get through that?
Yeah, so one of the things I've been bullying most of my students into doing is this right here, is the dot occlusion that everybody's been talking about, is go ahead and tape off just the front of your optic so that you can still see the dot in there. So it literally forces you to stare down range if you want to pick up your target. If you want to see your dot, it forces you to remain down target and just kind of float it into your open vision. So people who tend to squint, you'll kind of learn to open both eyes. People who shoot with two eyes open, you'll kind of learn to put it in front of your dominant eye and use your non-dominant eye instead of just keeping it in front of your head. So it's interesting, but in practice, that is one of the best ways I can get people to lock onto targets and stay locked onto targets. And even people, if you shoot a dot and you're listening to this and you're like, I can shoot a dot, don't worry about it. I've had a lot of students slap a piece of tape on and go, whoa, oh, it turns out I wasn't target focused. Even if they were shooting the dot well, it just turns out, holy shit, I wasn't target focused. Or maybe they were just target focused through the lens, because that's one of the things that blows people's mind. Well, you might be target focused, but are you target focused through a 2-inch little lens? Or are you target focused from your vision from behind the gun? Because that's two different things now. And I didn't realize that until this season, that's actually an issue with some people. It's like, I am staring at the target. Oh, you're staring at it through a window like this big. That's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
That's going to be an issue. Okay, so we need to slap that off. Don't give you the option to look at it anymore. And all of a sudden you see people make this adjustment and they're like, boom, oh, whoa. Okay. And then I watch somebody run a plate rack faster than they've ever run it. I'm like, oh, there you go.
Exactly. All right. And then the next step up from that is you remove the occlusion and just turn the brightness way down on your dot.
Yep. And just trust that little flash that you think you see. Yep. It's very interesting.
Let's talk about the wiggle. A lot of people struggle with the wiggle.
So that's funny because everybody coming from iron sights or people who I just call them my slower shooters, my accurate shooters, they need a still dot. They need it so bad. And you know it's never going to happen. A still dot. It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. Unless you bench rest it, but not what we're talking about here. So you're going to have to get used to the wiggle. The wiggle has to be your friend. You have to be, it's just going to have to be like a dog tail wag. Just like it. It's a good thing. Enjoy it. That's it.
Well, even with iron sights, sometimes the wind's blowing super hard and it's kind of swaying, or if you're on an unstable platform, it's kind of swaying and you just pull the trigger when it crosses the spot you want to hit.
I mean, the best thing I can relate to people is everybody knows dot torture, the 10 dots that you shoot at. Whenever I'm teaching people and they're shooting dot torture for the first time, they always go right hand only. And they're like, oh my God, I can't keep the sight still. So I was like, don't worry about it. Just focus on the trigger, knowing damn well that that's going to be the best group they shoot. And guess what happens every time? Right hand and left hand. And I go, so listen, what you just saw, that shake, that wiggle, and you accepted it and you thought about trigger and you thought about your grip, well, welcome. Welcome to the world of shooting faster, because that's going to be what you need to learn is just accept the wiggle, accept the shake within your margin of error. That's where JJ Ricazo's attack control drills and stuff come in, because you learn your margin of error. You learn what is my attack, what is my control, stuff like that. And you kind of learn to read your gun. That's one of my favorite things is I just read my gun. What is my gun telling me right now? How still does it need to be depending on that target out there?
It's kind of like the same moment with iron sights when you recognize that at 5 yards, your front sight can be occluded slightly to the left, the right, a little high, a little low, and those are all perfect alphas.
Yep.
And your brain is telling you no, 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 and it's actually alpha, 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 alpha.
Yep. Which is funny because right as I hit, I didn't let myself go to dots competition wise until I hit master class or just A class in production. And I was like, all right, now I'll go play with dots. But right as I hit A class in production, what I actually hit my stride in doing was target focused. And I didn't realize, because this was like 7 years ago and nobody was talking about it yet. At least they weren't making a mess of it on Instagram. We'll say that. But yeah, so it was cool because it made sense to me. And when I went to dots, one of the big things was I called it a sacrifice. I was like, all right, all my students, like, I'm not a police officer, I'm not in the military, I'm not getting shot at. I'm just a competitor. I'll throw a dot on my gun. I'll only shoot it for 8 months and we'll see what happens. I'll report back. Like, I'll just kind of do this. This was in 2015, right? So 2016 comes around, 8 months had gone by, and I just went back to my iron sight gun and I realized, oh my God, every single time I draw my gun, regardless of if I actually pick up my front sight focus, it's always there. And I started, it clicked. I was like, oh my God, all right. So the awareness of my dot, the awareness of my index means I'm just aware of where my gun is pointing. And within a certain margin of error, obviously everybody's got a different margin of error. Within 8-9 yards, I could just index the gun. I could just point the gun. So it's funny because sporting clay people say that all the time, point. We aim pistols. We aim rifles. You point shotguns. That's always been something that I tell my people, and somebody who comes from sporting clays into our sport has a hard time crossing those over, except for right now. Right now, I can tell you just point at the target. Go ahead and point at the target. What does that mean to you? Okay, boom. What does that mean? Is that going to hit 2 alphas? Yes. Does it need to be any more precise? No. Well, yeah. So you can get this level of target focus on iron sights that I just kind of found from getting really comfortable on my dot. My dot led me to be a better iron sight shooter. And that's where I kind of turned the tide in telling people, hey, it might be a good idea to get dots, to you should get a dot. Just do it. Just get a dot. Just go ahead and get dots in your guns.
And it's going to make you a faster shooter. Even if you go back to iron sights, initially you might suffer, but you're going to be faster.
100% will. It fixed my presentation is what I found. I tell all my students that it's kind of like your own little coach built in, where if I do a draw and my dot's not there, fix your grip until it's there. And you just got a cue. Oh, what did I need to do to fix? Oh, I wasn't squeezing my left hand hard enough. When I squeezed my left hand, there came my dot. All right, cool. It's showing you that when you have iron sights, I don't know if it's subconscious or people just lie to themselves, but you'll see the sights coming out and you'll see this on the presentation and you'll fix it. But you can't do that with the dot. You can't, it's got to land there. It's got to land there every single time. So you get a better sense of where my dot is in space in relation to my index. I love that word, my index. And it's just, where's my gun index? Where's my gun index? And it's a helpful tool, whether you're going to shoot competition, whether you're going to shoot dots forever or not. It's a very helpful tool. It really is a helpful tool.
Yeah. And then you see people using a fine motor skill, like rotating their wrists, trying to find the dot. Well, what's faster, a fine motor skill or a gross motor skill? A gross motor skill, right? So instead, with iron sights, the gun takes the same path as you would on the draw. So if you index on your target and reholster, coming back out, that's the same path you're going to take on the draw with iron sights, because they're right on the slide. The problem with the dot, it's not right on the slide. You have maybe 2 inches or whatever it may be for you. And you have to index up higher and then sort of float the gun that last little bit of the way. And that's a gross motor skill with your arms. So it's a quick draw and then slight float just in the last inch or 2. And that's going to help you find the dot without doing the whole wrist thing. And if you do it and still don't get it, if you just raise or lower your arms, usually it's lowering your whole arms, then it's just going to be there.
That's generally what I tell people. It's generally, if you present, it's don't change your wrist.
Or
represent or grip your gun harder is generally what I'll tell people. If you go, oh, there it is. Oh, I wasn't.
Then it's the same thing as lowering your arms.
Yeah. So it's funny, that wrist thing is, I tell people, don't milk the cow. It just drives me insane. I don't want to see people milking cows while they're drawing the gun. It just, it bothers me, but it makes sense. I mean, you don't realize you're doing it with your iron sights until I put it in your dot in your hands, and then you do it to a extreme level. Right. And then it's like, all right, we've figured out an issue. You have an issue with your presentation. You have an issue with your index. Most people, or not most people, some people do, some people don't, but we could figure that out with a dot, and you wouldn't have figured that out just shooting irons forever.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned representing. That is an option, but it's a slower option than just slightly lowering your arms. When I say slightly lower your arms, that's for people who already have their grip nailed. Otherwise, if
I know this is good, where
perfect already, then fix your grip. If you know your grip is right on perfect, then just lower your arms.
But it's funny too, because the whole dot occlusion thing kind of ruffled a lot of feathers to start in our community, and it was kind of a head scratcher to me, because I've not been in just the pistol community forever. I mentioned sporting clays. I come from a sporting clay background. My grandfather liked to shoot like biathlon style stuff, 22s, like lay down, just be accurate. And he was a hunter, so it's just like wood guns with scopes on them. He was a woodworker. He would make his own stuff. So it's like, I don't come from a sporty background. I come from kind of like a FUD background. But even but that's my joke though, is even the FUDs in like the 70s were covering the front of their scopes to understand it was working. It's a way to focus on your prey and keep your target in focus and use your scope. So it came up and I was like, oh no, why didn't I think of that? And everybody started arguing, and I was like, wait, hold on. guys, that's a thing already. You guys know that's a thing already, and it
Yeah.
works. Like, it works, right? So it came out. I was like, oh yeah, duh.
Yeah, but just
Duh.
remember that's only a training wheel.
Yeah,
That's not how you train all the time.
No, I refer to it as resistance bands, right? Like, are you going to bench
Right.
press with resistance bands to train? Hell yeah. Like, yeah, you want to get stronger? Cool. Am I going to go compete every competition with resistance bands on? No, I'm not going to do something to hold myself back willingly in a competition. I'm going to remove that resistance and kind of feel that extra speed is the way I look at it. That's kind of what I like. That said, I have beta tested. I'm giving myself way too much credit, but I tested myself shooting a couple matches and a major match occluded, and I liked it. I didn't mind it. Now, that said, I am a cross dominant shooter. I shoot Glocks, which have we'll call it a questionable grip angle, and I could use the
Not for you
assistance.
though.
No, they fit me, but it's like I could use the assistance downrange just because I'm cross dominant and like not getting confused like through ports and through weird stuff like that. And I shot area 8, which was an incredibly hard match, occluded, but there's a lot of weird stuff, like holding a port open and shooting like that, wobble bridges, like leaning and shooting weird stuff, really, really low ports. And it helped me not lose focus. So it's cool. Now, that said, do I think it made like a advantage or disadvantage? I hate to say I wish I took it off halfway through the match so I can better answer this question. I won't shoot another match with it occluded, I don't think, but I like it as a training tool like most of the time. I like it for dry fire. I like it for a lot of my simple practice. If I'm shooting stages or if I'm shooting like bigger arrays, I try to take it off to make sure I'm staying focused. If I stop focused, I'll tape it again and I'll just keep torturing myself until I continue focused.
Yeah, it does train you to have a soft focus, but still pick up your dot.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't do it all the time. It's just sort of a training wheel. So something else you can do to train your eye strength to help you switch your focus like that is just hold out your thumb in front of you, focus on your thumb, relax your eyes and focus on the wall behind it. Then focus on your thumb, relax and focus on the wall behind it, and just keep switching back and forth. Those are your accommodation muscles. Very important for shooting. And there are a lot of other exercises too. That's just one example. You can also do the same thing with your dot. If you have a dot or iron sights, switch between the dot or iron sights and then relax to a soft focus to the wall behind them.
Yeah, that's interesting because I tell a lot of my students, if you're not getting a dot at first, or if you're struggling with this, well, your eyes are muscles, they'll get stronger. There's ways to figure this out. Occlusion is one of them. What you just said is a huge thing. A lot of your eye training and spot training and transition training is what I refer to people. I actually have a little, like I have a couple of my targets have your little sticky on them from your dry fire kit. Stuff like that is really good little cheats for people to kind of train your eyes. And then once you can do it with the cheat, take the cheat away. See if you can keep doing it. Keep doing the juggle until I can do it. So it's a very simple process when you zoom out and think of it like a sports science. It's very difficult when it gets involved in guns and ego and I want to get this and just let me get it already. And people get very frustrated very quickly. And I understand it from both ways. I come from, again, a FUD side of things that would never practice and never dry fire. Like we just go hunting and then we don't, and then we go to hunting and then we don't. This is weird for a lot of gun people. Now, what's funny is I find the guys coming from like tennis and like analytical side of things, they get really good at stuff like this. Our 70-year-old accountant, Richard, who is like the most analytical guy I know, who I can turn to, he's been shooting for like a year and a half. I'm not giving him enough credit, but he's been shooting for a limited amount of time. And I can turn and be like, Richard, what's the hit factor on this going to be? And I'll be like, it'll be like 5.7 for you probably, as long as you shoot that target and that target. Like, Jesus Christ. Like the guys coming from the analytical side of things do very well with these new concepts like dots. They do very well with new concepts like hit factor and these classifiers and all this stuff. It's the guys coming from, I've been shooting my whole life, that don't do very well with it. It's funny. Most of the time.
So this is kind of a funny story from Costa being in the class. Obviously, he doesn't deal with hit factor ever. And he had heard of it, but never actually had to sit down and work through it until my class. I like math. So do you want to tell everyone what happened with that?
It was just so
like,
funny.
How do I know what it's going to be?
Yeah, he's just watching him like analyze through this and going like, no. And him of all people, you know your hits, you know your splits, you know what it's going to be. So you could tell us this. And it was like that confidence to be able to say, this is what it's going to be. if I go this fast, I could do this. If I do this, I could do this. So when you break down the skills and show somebody what they're capable of, hit factor does, beyond the sports side of things, it does show you what you're truly capable of. So I love teaching like that. And he went, oh my God, I could do this. Oh, I could go that fast. I could miss faster and still get a better hit factor. Like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Hold on.
I was so confused.
How are you getting Charlies and I'm
I can
getting all
absorb
alphas?
the mics.
Yeah, like it was crazy to watch him analyze that. But then, yeah, it's you go, okay, it does. Oh, I see. Oh, okay, I see. All right, I understand. And you can take that lesson back to anywhere. You really can. But it's funny to see that. It really was.
Yeah. So he said to me, I've never shot this drill before. There's no way I could know what my hit factor would be without shooting it. And you had just pulled up to the range, climbed out of your truck, and I said, Sam, you're going to shoot this in about a hit factor of 15, plus or minus a hit factor
literally,
of
hold
1.
on, let me put my belt on. Like,
yeah.
like,
and
I was
even
just
thinking to myself, down to the detail, I thought to myself, okay, if he shoots this in 2 seconds, he's going to have all alphas. It'll be about a 15.
Yeah.
If he goes just below 2 seconds, he's going to drop a Charlie. And what happened?
Yep. Yeah, literally just that. It was like I think it was all alphas in like 2.1. It was like on the money, and I turned around.
No, you dropped 1 Charlie and 1.87.
Oh, no,
and then one of the
yes,
guys
yes,
in
yes,
the class turns around. He goes, "Oh my
How did you
God!
know? How did you
Your score was my draw."
poor Malas. I loved him. He was drawing from appendix and giving himself so much shit the whole time. But no, it was so funny to show Chris, like, yeah, no, you know me well enough to know that, like, all right, I've seen him draw before. I know the draw is going to be something under a second. I know the splits are going to be about 0.2. I know this drill is quick and dirty. It should be 2.5 seconds. And if he screws, okay, yeah, boom, 15 hit factor. And everybody went, all right, I believe you. Now we'll get into the drill. Like, that was it. It was all it took. It was funny. People like, all right. I get it. I understand now. I'll try it.
Yeah. Everyone protesting. The second Sam steps out of his truck, I'm like, your hit factor is this. He shoots it. That's his hit factor. They're like, okay, well, I'll shut up and listen now.
All right. I'll do it. All right. And that's more the thing too, is it's not that like you should be doing hit factor math before stages. We're not teaching you to do
no.
You're a witch and that's fine. They got to see that. That's fine. But really what it is, hey, I like to teach in that regard too. It's like, hey, hit factor stuff. Hey, let's just see what your hit factor is to a draw to 2 right here, to 2. All right. What's your individual split's going to be here? All right. Well, what's your transition of this target going to be? All right. You should be able to do it in this. Can we agree on that? And people, even from outside of the sporting world, can start to understand, all right, this is why we train in this like analytical hit factor fashion, because you could really break it down and see what's lacking. So if I have you do this target, I have you do this transition, I have you do this target, and then I put it all together and I look on the timer and something screws up, well, we can just drill that out. Well, yeah, you don't have to be a USPSA
it shows you
shooter.
your lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah, you don't have to be a USPSA shooter to take gold away from that. I do that with my police officers. I do that with CCW people. I don't care. I can teach you anything with hit factor. It's just showing you how to be efficient. That's all it is. It's a efficiency ratio. That's all it really is.
But in the sport, it does show you what risks you should or should not be taking. It also shows you if it's a little points heavy, a little speed heavy. What's your focus for this stage? You don't have to sit and calculate your hit factor. Although I have done that before on stages with disappearing targets or something weird. Like I had a stage where you have your stage and you can do like a 30-yard run to go and engage one target. All I did was lean out of the fault lines and go bop, bop. So it's, or
Engaged.
just one shot. So it's not a failure to engage.
Yeah.
And then just took 2 mics and won the stage. Because I was the only one who didn't run that 30 yards.
And that's the thing that used to bother the heck out of me in the game is like we'd
with
be shooting.
Matt, because Matt Olenchak
Bingo, Matt Olenchak would kill
time.
me. He would kill me. We'd be at area 8 and there'd be some speed shoot and I'd be like, I'm going to burn this and I'm going to get 14 alphas. And he'd take half the amount of shots in half the amount of time because there was no penalty mics on the stage and he just knew how to like out math me. And I was just like, God, it would frustrate the hell out of me. And now I'm like, oh, I get it. I understand. So it's funny.
I might not be able to outshoot you, but I can outmath you.
Oh, he could outshoot me too, but it was frustrating to be outmatched because I was like, I didn't even get an opportunity to prove anything. He was just like, yeah, stop being stupid. It's like, oh yeah, I should stop being stupid. Good call. Yeah. But it's
All right,
funny
so
because that's where you make the biggest gains in the sport, is seeing somebody like that use their head and not their muscle. And it's like, okay, this is a sport of brain. This is a sport of eyes. This is not a
yeah.
sport of try hard. I mean, you have to try hard, but that's not
And
what we
I
mean.
think that really shocked Chris Costa in this class. He was like, wow, they're not just a bunch of Neanderthals shooting, like throwing rounds downrange as fast as they can. They're actually doing math while they're doing
We're
this.
sitting here with a notebook and with calculators and talking about splits and what. Yeah, it's like, why would you need to care about that? And then, yep, here we go.
You have to be intelligent to be a part
100%.
of the sport.
I say that to people all the time. I go out to a USPSA match and find me a dumb guy, because they just don't. They're not there, and if they're there, they're not there for more than a match or two. They don't last. And like, I'm not being mean when I say that. It's just, if you're not somewhat intelligent, you don't last in the sport, because you need to be intelligent to succeed in the sport. You need to be intelligent to wrap your head around a lot of these concepts. So even if you're doing somewhat okay in the sport and you're being hard on yourself, you're probably doing better than you think if you can hang it in here like this
you're
is
still in the top half of 1% of all shooters in the world.
Yeah, and that blows people's minds when I tell them that. I'm like, you got to understand, you could be a C-class nobody, because everybody loves that term, and it doesn't matter. Like, if you're a C-class nobody and you can hang in there, you can outshoot most everybody else in the world that owns a pistol. Isn't that mind-blowing? Like, that's mind-blowing. It really is. So there's something to say for the whole hit factor and the way we train. I'm not saying you got to be into the sport, but you could manage a C-class. Any cop out there can manage a C-class if you really put your head to it. So I'm not calling anybody out or anything. But.
So we'd strayed a little bit off topic, but back to Red Dot, what did we not cover that maybe you wanted to bring up? Anything you can think of?
Because I was intermittent, so you guys did some swinger stuff when I wasn't there, but that was something that I've loved to be messing with people recently with red dots and swingers, and kind of understanding what you can get away with as far as dot movement and all that. And it's kind of crazy what the dot affords you to get away with, but you have to put the time into learning the dot. That's kind of what it is. The dot tells you a lot about your gun. You just have to invest the time into kind of picking up that information.
Oh yeah, you get so much more feedback from a dot than you do from iron sights.
Yeah.
So something I noticed people really overthink a lot is, especially on sliders, they think, oh, you have to lead the target. Well, your eyes automatically are going to tell your body what to do. And if you overthink it, that's when you're going to mess it up. It takes about 0.18 seconds for your eyes to match the pace of the target moving. But once they're there, the visual input automatically tells your body what to do. You don't have to think about it. Like, were you the one who told me that football analogy? If somebody's running, maybe that was someone else, but I liked this analogy. They said, well, if someone's running and you're going to throw them the football, you're not going to think, oh, I have to lead on them by 3 feet because they're running at 7.4 miles per hour or whatever. You're just going to look at them and throw the ball and it's going to go where they end up. You don't think about it. It just happens. Your eyes just tell your body what to do.
No, it makes sense. I played lacrosse and that's exactly what you do. If somebody's running downfield, you wouldn't be like, I'm going to throw it 4 feet ahead of them. You would just throw them the ball.
Exactly.
You just look where I'm going to put it and there it goes. Oh,
look, there it is.
Yeah, no, it's funny because it does sound like magic, and it sounds like I'm being facetious to some people who've been aiming their whole lives. And I'm like, no, I'm not fucking with you. I swear to God. Like, I'm not being mean to you. I'm not messing with your brain right now. I'm saying you don't need to aim so hard. You don't need to try so hard. Try this. Don't try so hard. Trust your body, trust your index, trust your eyes, trust your brain. If you do your training, it'll kind of pay off. And the whole thing too is if you don't fail, you won't know if it's not paying off. You got to fail and see what's working. So.
All right, so you had a couple other topics. Let's move on to cross training with USPSA. You touched on this a little bit, but for work, if you carry a gun for work.
Yeah, so we actually, it's actually a weirdly good analogy is or a good intro. We were just talking about hit factor stuff. And I like to ask all my the guys that I train with, especially the SWAT officers and the police officers, because I tend to train a more serious group of guys. Like I'm not just on the line yelling at every cop. I train with guys who seek it out. So they're typically in the gym and typically doing stuff like that. And they go, hey, what's your bench number? What's your squat number? What's your mile time? And they got it. What's your draw time?
What's your split time at 10 yards?
Yeah. Ooh,
On an
well,
open target.
did I warm up? Is it nice outside? Ooh. And I'm like, no, man, like that's not, you just answered me your squat number real freaking confidently. You had it. It was right there. And so it's a weird ego thing. And I have a problem that people don't know their numbers. They don't know what their performance metrics are. That's all it is performance metric. I want to know, can I produce a gun safely at this distance, at this place? Should I choose to not? Should I move? Should I not? You know, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do in your head now. Also, does it hurt to know I could step and draw and put shots on a target while staying target focused within 10 yards in under a second? Does that hurt? I don't think that hurts. I talked to a lot of guys who have been in shoots and been in situations, and I very jokingly asked them in front of other people, hey, do you wish you went slower and like took a better sight picture and like, pressed your trigger more? And by the time I have that out, I'm getting like smacked in the back of the head, and they're like, shut up, you know, shut up, Sam. So it's like, yeah, it's not bad to understand what I can do under speed and pressure, and then just translate it to whatever you do. Because that's the funny thing. There's somebody going on online about don't dry fire. And it's going to create training scars. And well, everything we do creates training scars. It's just your job to acknowledge what your training scars are and pertaining to your work and fix it. That's all. So yeah, guys, don't double tap everything and move on. Like, yeah, Chris, that was a hard thing to break Chris of, is like, yeah, you have to move your eyes off of the target when you're finished with it. But what if your job says you shouldn't do that? Well, yeah.
Right.
Understood.
You have to make sure they're down and they're not getting back up. You have to confirm.
Yeah. So bump transitions might not be the 100% thing that you're going to take away from USPSA yourself, but knowing how to control your dot under speed, knowing what your draw time is, knowing how to transition when you need to transition, and how to pick spots on targets. Yeah, that'll help. So acknowledge what you could take away from it, shake away what you don't. And the crossover in training is huge. And some of the most successful police officers I know, and I don't even want to say police officers, they're SWAT officers, they're the trainers, they're the top end of their guys. They're the best 3-gunners I know. They're the best USPSA shooters I know. And then they also go back to work and they put on a helmet and plates and go kick doors, you know, like they're the best shooters I know, period. So it's definitely not a chance. It's not like a happenstance that they just happen to be the best shooter on their squad and they shoot USPSA. That's not a coincidence. There's no way. It's just not a chance. So it's something that I'm seeing is getting more acknowledged, though, that the USPSA, at least the competition side, the pressurized shooting side, is starting to get out there more. I think just teaching people to shoot with hit factor in mind is a pretty eye-opening thing for people. It's not all accuracy, it's not all speed. Think with your brain a little bit more.
So what if one of these guys just showed up to a match with whatever gear they had?
So I love this. I love this because yes, they should come. That's what they should be doing now, is now that we've kind of softened all the holster requirements and everything, all the light bearing requirements and all that, come shoot. We could come use your duty rig. Come use your duty gear. I mean, I always joke too, because I say duty and I laugh about it, because here's my competition gun. It's a Glock 45 with my carry light on it. You know what I carry? This one. This one. So I have other Glocks that I shoot. Like this is my 3-gun Glock, because 3-gun is the time where we like whip them in buckets. So I'm like, all right, I'll have a beater Glock that'll like yeet into buckets sometimes. So that's fine. But like for USPSA and everything else I do, here's my gun. So I laugh when people talk about duty versus carry, because I'm like, duty, what are you talking about? I just milled a dot onto my Glock. I shoot a stock trigger. I shoot stock everything. I do pretty well with it. It's fine. It's okay. It's all right. So these guys have nicer, more decked out guns than I do, and they tell me that I'm a gamer. I'm like, no, man. Bring your rig out, bring your stuff out, and just come play with us. That's all you got to do, is just come play with us.
So what about the guys who need to train with an AR? You can't shoot an actual AR in USPSA, but what can you do? I
love it, because that's my favorite new thing that I'm playing with right now is my PCC. Is the best thing. And I was actually just having a conversation with one of the sales reps for Modern Material. That's my sponsor, Modern Material, but they're buddies of mine. And one of the sales rep is a personal friend of mine, and I'm pulling him into shooting a match on the 23rd. And I'm like, hey, let's shoot PCC. Come on, let's shoot PCC. There's a lot of stuff online about rifles and stuff right now, but like, it's also not for nothing. I know this sounds funny. I look young. I'm getting old and my hands are very cold right now. So I'm like, all right, I want to shoot a rifle. I want to get some work in with my rifle. I want to transition my rifle around. And what a better way to do it than it just looks like an AR to me, right? That's pretty much an AR. It's just Glock mags, but it's an AR. So all the same stuff I would practice in 3-gun, all the same stuff I would practice with my guys inside shoot houses and keeping my gun up and being able to do good transitions and things like that. Well, yeah, we have a way to do
Still
it
all
now.
the same manipulations.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to be extra safe and do all that extra stuff, nobody's ever going to fault you for throwing safety on and coming to a high ready between positions. It's fine. As long as you're not breaking 180s, you're not going to get punished. And that's the other funny thing I joke with all these guys is, are you coming to win a match or are you coming to shoot? If you're coming to win a match, you're not going to be happy ever if you go to your first match and you expect to win. So get that out of your head. But if you're coming out to shoot, come out to shoot. Stop paying attention to your scores. Come take it as an opportunity to shoot 200 to 300, maybe 400 scored and timed rounds, pressurized rounds. Come see what
versus a 40-round fall every 6 months.
Yeah, nothing. Or just go mess around with your buddies. Because as much as everybody thinks going to a range day for 3 hours and I shot 500 rounds, what did you really do, right? Or you go to a match and everybody's first match, they text me after they go, thank you for sending me my first match. I can't believe how much I learned today. I'm like, see, what have I been telling you? You will learn more that first match. More people will talk to you. You'll see more gear. You'll be introduced to more concepts. And not only that, you'll see it done. It's not going to be a bunch of guys talking around, patting themselves on the back. I'm going to go, hey, this is my stage plan. I'm going to try this. Watch this. And you're going to go, that was a dumb idea. I'm not going to do that. Like you'll see it. Or you'll see that guy go, hey, come here, check this out. Try this out. You'll see the guy. He's a GM. He burns it down. And I'll probably listen to that guy. And you'll pick up some stuff from this guy. You'll see what dot he shoots. You'll see what gun what holster does he use? What do you carry? And you'll start to make friends and talk to these guys who actually shoot. I hate to say it like that, but if you have an instructor that doesn't compete or actively put his line,
a lot more rounds than a 40-round qual every 6 months.
Yeah. I've been putting this out there a bunch, but if you have an instructor that doesn't actively compete or actively put his life on the line, what is he doing? Like, what is he doing other than reading you what he's been read? If you don't have your skin in the game, if you're not putting your money where your mouth is and trying and failing and coming back to your people and giving them real results, what are you even doing? Competition is like the way to prove your chops. I always tell people too, you think you have your carry rig set up, come to a match, something's going to break and you're going to be like, thank God it broke on Sunday with all my friends while meeting a PB&J between stages. And it wasn't when I was doing some drawdown in a back alley somewhere, right? Like just come run your gear and see what breaks. Just see what breaks. That's all. If nothing breaks, congratulations. You have a bulletproof rig. Good.
Yeah. You mentioned the 180. That's one thing guys struggle with coming to a match because in the real world, there's no 180. It's a 360 world. And I have to say, I was super impressed with Costa. He never once broke the 180.
He didn't even have one of those moments where he was like, no, he was fine. He could program in his head.
He visualized it. Like that was his main focus getting through the class was, I am not going to break the 180 in this class.
And we did like kamikaze, and the kamikaze setup you did was mean. It was like weirdly backwards.
I did do it mean.
Like, and he did it. He did it the mean way too. He was all the way in the back, ran all the way forward. Like he did all over the place, and he was fine. So it really does show that like mental programming can help your game. It doesn't matter who you are. Like it really does. Like you can just add that one little cue of like mental programming, and boom, you can make a big difference to what you're doing because it didn't take away from his accuracy or speed at all.
No,
100% didn't
at all.
He hit all the plates. Actually, that was the weird thing. You had to we had to tell Chris and the rest of the class, like normally kamikaze is a absolute train wreck for the first go because everybody screws up their first go. And what does Chris do? It's just 1 for 1 at the first time. Which
has never happened in my class before, ever.
No, I've done it with you so many times. I was like, come on, no. Like plate 4, plate 5, no. Plate 6, no way. Like first guy, first
Usually
one,
it's
really?
like first shot they miss.
So it shows you like
usually.
Is it gonna ever? Does what we do? Is it an extra thing to think about? Is it extra training? Sure. Does it affect your accuracy or speed? It didn't seem to. It didn't seem to at all. I've never seen that happen before. So.
Me neither. Usually we get through everyone and they say, okay, Kita, if it's so easy, let's see you do it. And I do it and they're like,
and then you do it. Crap. Now
and then everybody lines up to do it again.
I think we got 3 through.
Sam, I'm tired. You do it.
It was bizarre. Yeah. It's show pony time, right? Yeah. But I couldn't believe it. We got like 3 people through before we had to be like, look, this is not normal. I don't know what's happening right now. I don't know if you all
Right.
had like Wheaties this morning or what
What do you
happened,
have
but
for
like,
breakfast? Yeah.
yeah, like
It-
everybody,
it's
like,
waffles.
yeah, that's, you know what?
Stovetop Tastings.
Yes, I will
He's
shout out to
been
waffles. Oh my God.
little shout out to Waffles at
Oh
Stovetop
yeah.
Tastings. He's been doing all the catering for my classes and
Yep.
all the classes at Double Eagle.
Yep.
Gourmet chef on site. You don't have to go anywhere and eat, and it's actually cheaper than going out to eat.
Yeah, it's honestly
really
one of
good
the
food.
best little additions we've had because I
Oh,
love
it's
hosting Kita. I've
amazing.
been hosting Kita since I had like I'm not joking, it was a farm range. We were surrounded by cows.
Yeah.
There was just like berms I popped
We
up and
built a
like
boardwalk
yeah,
in
literally
the
I had to put
grass.
pallets down and put stuff so that we had a place to do a class. So like we've done some rustic classes before. And then coming to Double Eagle was like, okay, cool. Now we have a range. It's like a quarter mile from this like mansion that we had that was built in the 80s. And now
Yeah.
we like, I called it a shooter's Airbnb. And now we had like this little like country club feel. And then we bring in waffles and then we keep sprucing this place up. And now we have the point where like 10 people are staying there. We have catered food. All we got to do is wake up, learn from Kita, go back to sleep at night. That was it. That was it for 2 days. And it like couldn't be a better situation up there anymore. It's the best. I honestly think that's making a big difference in the classes too, because people are
It does.
crushing it. Yeah.
It's a full shooter's experience. Normally you go to a class, maybe if you have a generous instructor, you'll have a class dinner, but a lot of times the instructors kind of need that me time and they need to go
Yeah.
decompress, which I understand, but
Yeah.
this is a full on experience where you are there on site with the instructor. You can
Yep.
pick their brain however long they want to stay out and converse.
I know
And if they
Steve
need to go to
Dunkel
bed,
always
they go to
says that.
bed.
Steve always says that's where he learns the most stuff is at night. It's like when we're talking and
Yes.
sitting there and like you can have that like deeper conversation and you have that moment where you're
Right.
like, I have this like train of thought I want to talk about. Like you really get to the bottom of something because you don't want to stop a class to have that on the range.
Right.
So yeah, it's invaluable to be able to like hang around and talk about all this. And like you do realize how cerebral all this stuff is and how like it really is so much more about thought process and work and repetition and meaningful practice than it is the best gun this and the biggest this and the baddest this. It's all going to be about like the brain power you put into all this stuff and who's more upset. I think it was JJ that told me it's like the most successful shooters are a step below OCD. Like disorder is the
Yeah.
one thing they're missing.
It's not a
Like,
step below.
yeah,
They're
it pretty much
OCD.
they're undiagnosed. We'll put it like that. Yeah. Well, I say that sitting here surrounded by dry fire targets, and despite
Right.
needing to like cover the vents in my home, but I have dry fire targets
Oh,
and stuff
goodness.
around me. Yeah.
If I
So-
turned my camera around, you'd find targets on every
Everything.
wall,
Right? Everything.
hiding behind everything.
Mhm.
Like I use my mantle around my fireplace because if you move away a little bit, the target disappears. And then you move this way a little bit
Yep.
and it reappears. So I have targets on each side. So as I move, they disappear and reappear.
So you
Or
know,
put
like
it
that doorway
down like
back here.
behind a chair.
Yep.
So you have to run all the way up to the chair, go up on your tippy toes, and then you
Mhm.
can see it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's why I have this room. That's why I hate to admit that this has become my dry fire room because I tried to put it in my basement out of everybody's face, but then I look around and I have all these angles. And I have this door frame that goes up and I have this down and I have this bay window and I'm like, oh man, I can't. I love it. I can throw my gun around and I'm a 3-gunner too, so I could throw a barrel in the middle of this and throw a gun down and pick up another one. So it's good times. It's good times. But
One of the
people think
really
it's funny.
nice, one drill I really like with the rifle in your house is just opening an interior door and
Yeah.
you just maneuver the rifle
Yep.
back and forth around the door,
Mhm.
just over and over.
Mhm.
And you can go from like weak shoulder to strong shoulder or whatever you want to do, just around that door with it basically
in your
this far in
face, yep.
front of your face.
Yep. Just learning to pull it and
A
get it
couple
around.
inches away from your face, and you have to really get that gun
Mhm.
all the way around it. And you can do that with a pistol as well, because you do
Yeah.
find those situations.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
Area
as
8 was
common with
great.
pistols.
A lot of times I had to pick up a port and put it on top of my head and then stick a pistol through a window. So yeah, it happens. They're making it worse.
Oh,
and worse
just a
and stuff
tip
there.
for that. If you have to put a port door on top of your head, don't do it with a baseball cap with the little knob on the
All the
top.
Area 8 people out here listening. Yep.
That really hurts. So take a little cloth or something and put it
Mhm.
under your baseball cap. So you don't have that little knob that digs into your head. It's extremely painful.
Yep. A lot of people learn that the hard way. I had Blake, you know this, my student Blake, had a piece of foam, like a full piece of foam he put underneath his ear. So it was just like boing, boing, boing. So yeah, it's you can think on your toes a little bit, but I hate having to like alter my gear and game a stage when I'm trying to like mentally program. So I just took the half a concussion and moved on. It's
Yeah,
just
a
the way
knee
it
pad
is.
works too.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you
I
have
ended up
you should
putting,
always have a knee pad with
I
you.
tucked literally my knee pad in my hat. That's the only thing I had.
Yeah.
So was it a jarring feeling? Yeah, it was fine. I've had worse.
Yeah, it works. I mean, it's better than having that little knob cut your head open.
But I
I've
will
seen
say
guys
that's where,
literally start bleeding.
oh yeah, Dan, my buddy Dan, he the port just barely missed his head and it came down and like ripped his glasses off, hit him on the nose, like the whole thing came down and smashed his face. He just narrowly avoided blood. Yeah. So it's,
well, then you get to stop yourself because
yeah,
that's a
the
safety
glasses
issue.
came off. Yeah, it was, yeah,
Right.
they stopped him rightfully so, but it was I don't want to say funny, but it was one of those, ooh, oh, he's okay.
Yeah.
He's okay.
Everyone cringes.
Yeah. And yeah, it was, of course, it's my buddy. I walk up, I'm like, how's your day going? He's like, great. Can you take film of the stage? I'm like, let me film it. Sorry, here's your camera. sorry. But
yeah,
it's funny part of our sports. But I will say, like, the whole dot craze through Area 8, there's a lot of that whole match that, like, I don't know, not that I couldn't shoot it. That's such a cop out. Not that you couldn't shoot at iron sights, but like, it was I'm thankful I had
it was a tough match.
Yeah. Some of those swingers, some of those movers, and some of the weird angles, and that, like I'm saying, the ports were holding stuff open. Like, thank God I have a dot for that match. I'm not afraid of shooting any match, but that was a tough match, and that was, yeah. Thank God. There's a couple of times where I was shooting moving targets, and I was literally saying to myself, "Thank God I have a dot." Yeah.
All right. Is there anything we didn't talk about you wanted to touch on?
I don't think so. We had a little list that we kind of flowed through very organically there.
Yeah.
Basically, what my last point was, USPSA will make you more better. That's always my
more
point.
Gooder.
More gooder. It'll make you more gooder. Sorry, you don't ever have to be. And I always tell my people this is, I teach through the avenue of competition. You don't have to go to a regional. You don't have to go to a nationals. I don't care if you ever compete. I teach through the avenue of competition because it works. It works. I'm not the biggest, best, most popular instructor in the world, but I have a lot of repeat people. I have a lot of people that trust me, and I have a lot of people that I see the difference in. And all I do is teach what works for me, which is what you taught me and what all the other competitors have taught me. And it's just an amalgamation of going, this is performance shooting. If this is the tool you use, let me make you better with this tool. That's it. Let me make you better with this tool. I have the super secret sport that'll help you. So that's it.
All right. So where can people find you?
So I'm on CallahanTrainingGroup.com. It's my website. Everything I have is on there. Obviously, I'm Instagram, Facebook, that's all up. But Callahan Training Group is where all my business goes on. I host everything up at Double Eagle Outdoors. It's a little, not little, it's a huge range. This 209-acre property we have up in Poconos, Pennsylvania. Our website I just built is doubleeagleoutdoors.org. Not com. The com is broken.org. That's kind of where I'm at constantly. I'm always 24/7, 365, talking to my people, coaching. That's what I do.
And if you want to reach me, just email me 180firearmstraining@gmail.com. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.